Now, at first glance, it is the perfect temple. But look closer, and you will realize there is not a single straight line in the entire Parthenon. High atop the sun-bleached rock of the Acropolis, this crown jewel of Athens has stood for over 2,000 years as the ultimate symbol of order, logic, and architectural grace. To the casual observer, it looks like a master class in Euclidean geometry, a soaring forest of marble columns supporting a roof of pristine stone, where every corner appears sharp and every horizontal edge looks perfectly level. But this is a masterpiece built on a lie. This is the world's most beautiful deception. If you were to place a marble on the temple floor, it would not stay still. It would roll toward the edges. If you were to follow the lines of those massive columns into the sky, you would discover they do not point straight to the heavens. Instead, they lean inward, angled so precisely that if they continued upward for miles, they would eventually meet in a single point high above the earth. Even the columns themselves are not uniform cylinders. They swell in the middle, like a muscle tensed under a heavy load. The ancient Greeks were the masters of mathematics and the pioneers of geometry. See, they possessed the skill to build a structure with laser-straight precision, yet they chose a different path. For 15 years, the architects Iptinis and Callicrates, under the watchful eye of the sculptor Phidias, oversaw a project of staggering complexity and back-breaking labor. They spent a fortune in gold and utilized the finest Pentelic marble just to create an intricate web of curves, tilts, and subtle swells. By any standard definition of engineering, the Parthenon is intentionally wrong. Every single block was custom carved to fit a specific curved position. This was not a mistake of the chisel or a lapse in judgment. It was a calculated, mathematical obsession. Why would the greatest minds of the ancient world dedicate over a decade to crafting a temple that defies the very rules of symmetry they helped invent? What secret were they trying to hide in plain sight? And what does this architectural sorcery tell us about the way the Greeks viewed the relationship between the human eye and the truth of the universe? When you close your eyes and imagine the Parthenon, you likely see a ghost, a pale, weather-beaten skeleton standing defiant against the blue Athenian sky. For centuries, you see, this bleached skeletal image has defined our entire understanding of the ancient world. We have been taught to equate this stark white marble with the purity of reason, the birth of democracy, and the stoic calm of the Hellenic soul. It is a beautiful image, but it is a lie. The Parthenon we see today is a ruin stripped of its skin. To the citizens of ancient Athens, the site we admire today would have looked unfinished, perhaps even ghoulish. In its prime, this was not a monument of cold stone, but a riot of high-definition color. Imagine the Acropolis in 438 BCE. The air is thick with the scent of cedar and sacrificial smoke. Above you, the Parthenon shimmers, not in white, but in vibrant, electric shades of Tyrian purple, Egyptian blue, and sunset ochre. Gold leaf traced the edges of the gods' robes, catching the Mediterranean sun and throwing blinding light across the marble floor. This was a powerhouse of Hellenic pride, a visual symphony designed to overwhelm the senses. Yet, as we peel back these layers of historical paint and centuries of dust, we find that the vibrant colors were merely a veil. They were a distraction, right, from a much deeper, far more haunting reality hidden within the very bones of the structure. For generations, historians believed the Parthenon was a straightforward masterpiece of manual engineering, the result of skilled hands and immense imperial wealth. But the narrative is shifting. Modern investigators, armed with high-resolution laser scans and LiDAR technology, have begun to pierce the veil of the ancient stone. They have detected a hidden mathematical language carved into the foundations, a precision so extreme that it defies the tools of the era. These digital blueprints reveal that the Parthenon is not a collection of static blocks, but a living, breathing algorithm. Every column, every curve, and every joint follows a code that challenges everything we thought we knew about Greek construction. It suggests that the architects were not just building a temple. They were encoding a secret into the landscape of the living. But the mystery deepens when we realize that this perfect mathematical code was used to create an impossible illusion. To find the truth, we must look at the one thing the Greeks feared more than the gods themselves: the perfection of a straight line. In the blistering heat of 447 BC, the Acropolis it wasn't a place of quiet contemplation. No, it was a battlefield of stone, sweat, and radical ambition. At the very center of these clouds of marble dust stood three men, three giants whose names would be etched into the fabric of time itself. Iktinos, the master theorist; Callicrates, the technical genius; and Phidias, the legendary sculptor whose hands, they say, were moved by the direction of the gods themselves. You see, they weren't merely hired to stack stones. They were tasked by the statesman Pericles to build a home for Athena Parthenos, a monument that would signal to the world that Athens was the capital, the intellectual and spiritual capital of the universe. Deeply serious, the psychological weight on these men, it was immense. You have to understand, to fail was not just a professional disgrace, it was a divine insult. They were attempting to capture what they called the mathematical heartbeat of the cosmos. They truly believed the universe was governed by a hidden language of numbers and proportions. To Phidias and his architects, beauty was not a matter of opinion, it was a matter of geometry. In their wonder, they believed that if they could unlock the right ratios, they could build a structure that resonated with the very soul of the spectator. Yet, as they looked at their blueprints, they faced a terrifying realization. They understood a truth that most of us, we still struggle to grasp it today. In a conspiratorial way, the human eye is a flawed instrument. It is, quite literally, a liar. In analytical terms, the Greeks observed that when you place perfectly horizontal and vertical lines together on a massive scale, the human brain misinterprets them. A perfectly straight beam? Viewed from a distance, it appears to sag in the middle. A perfectly vertical column? It appears to lean outward as if the building is blooming like a flower, or worse, preparing to collapse. Stark and direct. To the architects, a perfect building would actually look broken. To achieve the appearance of divine perfection, they realized they had to embrace a profound, calculated deception. They would have to trick the human mind by building imperfections into every single stone. Every block would have to be slightly curved, every column slightly tilted, and every surface meticulously warped to counteract the flaws of human vision. They were embarking on a journey to create the world's most sophisticated optical illusion, a grand architectural lie that told a deeper truth. But how? How do you calculate a curve so subtle it remains invisible to the naked eye, yet powerful enough to straighten the very horizon? The answer lay in a series of optical refinements so complex that they still baffle modern engineers. And the first of these secrets, you see, it was hidden in the very foundation of the temple, in a floor that was never meant to be flat. Now,
Look closely at the massive marble platform beneath your feet. To the naked eye, you see, it appears as a perfect, level plane. But if you were to place a marble at one end of this great stylobate, it would not sit still. The entire floor of the Parthenon bows upward, rising several inches toward the center in a gentle, sweeping arc. This was no mistake of the masons, right? It was a calculated correction. The Greeks understood a cruel trick of human biology, that a perfectly flat line of this immense scale would appear to the human eye as if it were sagging, sinking under its own monumental weight. To make the temple look level, the architects had to make it crooked. Now, cast your gaze upward to the 46 outer columns. They stand like silent sentinels, appearing to rise in perfect vertical alignment. But here lies the second great deception. Actually, not a single pillar is truly straight. Each one leans inward with surgical precision. If you were to extend these massive marble shafts thousands of feet into the Athenian sky, they would eventually collide, meeting at a single invisible point miles above the earth to form a phantom pyramid. This inward tilt creates an illusion of structural strength, a feeling that the building is bracing itself against the heavens, forever resisting the urge to splay outward. Then there is the entasis, the secret heartbeat of the stone. Look at the silhouette of a single column, you know? It does not taper in a cold geometric line. Instead, it swells slightly in the middle, a subtle bulge, as if the marble were inhaling under the immense pressure of the roof. Seriously, without this slight curve, the pillars would look gaunt, brittle, and lifeless, a phenomenon known as the wasting effect. With it, the Parthenon breathes. It possesses a muscularity that makes the stone feel like a living, organic entity frozen in a moment of eternal grace. This is the geometry of deception. The Greeks realized that nature itself, well, it abhors a straight line. To achieve the divine harmony of the gods, they had to abandon the ruler and embrace mathematical distortion. They calculated these refinements to compensate for the flaws of our own vision, ensuring that every angle felt balanced and every shadow felt intentional. It is a masterpiece of psychological engineering, a grand lie told in marble to reveal a deeper aesthetic truth.
But as we peel back these layers of architectural sorcery, a more haunting question emerges. These refinements required a level of mathematical precision that seems, honestly, impossible for the tools of the 5th century. How did they calculate these curves to the millimeter across a structure of this scale? The secret lies not just in the stone, but in a hidden ratio that governed the entire ancient world, a number so powerful the Greeks believed it was the signature of the gods themselves. To build this signature of the gods, Pericles and his master builders embarked on an odyssey that would span 15 grueling years. It began 12 miles away at the white jagged peaks of Mount Pentelicus. Now, picture the scene. You see, this was not merely a construction site, it was a logistical war zone. 100,000 tons of pristine white marble had to be extracted from the very heart of the mountain. Every massive slab and every drum of a column was dragged down steep, treacherous paths on wooden sledges, then hauled across the rugged Attic plains. This was a slow-motion migration of the earth itself, a relentless procession of stone moving toward the summit of the Acropolis. But once the marble reached the sacred rock, the true sorcery began. We are not looking at a structure held together by mortar or luck. No, we are looking at a puzzle where the pieces are fused by sheer, terrifying precision.
The enigmatic joints between these massive blocks are so tight that a human hair cannot pass between them. To achieve this, the Greek masons worked with a margin of error of less than 1 millimeter, a feat of craftsmanship that challenges even our modern laser-guided tools. And the blueprint for this perfection? It was governed by a single sacred rhythm known as the 4:9 ratio. This mathematical heartbeat is felt everywhere, right? It defines the relationship between the width and the length of the temple, and the diameter of the columns to the space between them. This ratio creates a visual symphony, a sense of balance that feels natural to the human eye because it mimics the proportions found in the living world. Yet, here is the paradox. In this world of rigid math, there is no such thing as a standard block. Because of the subtle curves and optical refinements designed to trick the human eye, almost every single stone in the Parthenon is unique. Each block was carved for one specific spot and one spot only. It is a 100,000-ton jigsaw puzzle where every piece is a custom masterpiece, shaped to fit a curve that exists more in the mind than in a straight line. For 15 years, the rhythmic sound of iron on stone echoed across Athens until the temple stood complete, a gleaming white beacon visible from the distant sea. It was the undisputed pinnacle of human achievement. But as the sun set over the finished pediments, a darker shadow began to fall. Because while the Greeks had mastered the mathematics of the gods, they had forgotten the temperaments of men. The very wealth and ambition that built this wonder were about to trigger a catastrophe that would bring the entire Golden Age to its knees. As the final slab of Pentelic marble was winched into place back in 432 BC, a heavy, expectant silence fell over the Acropolis. The dust of an entire decade of labor began to settle, revealing a structure that didn't just sit upon the earth, it seemed to command the very air around it. You see, this was the pinnacle, the moment the vision of the sculptor Phidias was finally set in stone. But the beauty of the Parthenon, well, it wasn't just a triumph of craftsmanship, it was a victory of the mind. Hidden within its shimmering white facade was a secret language, a divine proportion known to us today as the golden ratio. Phi, 1 to 1.618. Now, this isn't just a number, it is the mathematical signature of the universe, found in the spiral of a nautilus shell and even the arrangement of distant galaxies. The Greeks didn't just stumble upon it, no, they harnessed it. And when you look at the Parthenon's facade today, you are looking at an absolute masterclass in this divine proportion. The height of the temple in relation to its width, the placement of the pediments, even the spacing between those massive fluted columns, every element was calculated to satisfy a deep, subconscious craving for order within the human brain. This was the architectural mirage. By weaving the golden ratio into the very fabric of the stone, the architects Ictinus and Kallikrates created a psychological illusion of perfection. To the ancient eye, well, the Parthenon didn't feel like a building made by mortal hands. It possessed a rhythmic, almost organic vitality that made it feel as though it had grown directly from the rock of the Acropolis, as eternal as the gods themselves. Standing in its shadow, a citizen of Athens didn't just feel small. They felt they were in the presence of something non-human, a physical manifestation of a cosmic code that would outlast time itself. It was a staggering achievement, a moment of supreme confidence where humanity believed it had finally mapped the mind of the divine. The epic, the Parthenon stood as a defiant roar of Athenian exceptionalism, a beacon of light that could be seen for miles across the Aegean Sea. But As the sun hit the peak of the western pediment, casting long, sharp shadows across the marble floor, the atmosphere began to shift. The Greeks had mastered the mathematics of the heavens, but they were about to be reminded of the brutal reality of the earth. Because while this temple was built to be eternal, you see, the piece that funded it was tragically fragile. And even as the last chisel was put away, a single, overlooked detail was about to set the entire Mediterranean ablaze. The Parthenon is far more than a crumbling ruin of Pentelic marble. You see, it is a message cast across 25 centuries intended for those who know how to listen. The Greeks did not merely see beauty in the world around them. No, they believed that beneath the chaos of nature lay a divine mathematical heartbeat. They sought to capture that rhythm, to pin the infinite cosmos down to earth, and they carved it into the very stone of history. As we look at the Acropolis today, we see the foundation of our own modern world. From the grand columns of the United States Supreme Court to the soaring skyscrapers of New York and London, the ghost of the Parthenon's geometry is everywhere. It taught us that architecture is not just about shelter, it is about the way a space makes us feel.
But there is a final startling secret hidden within its design. The ultimate payoff of the Parthenon's genius is actually a paradox. For over 2,000 years, we have called this temple perfect. Yet, if you were to measure it with a laser, you would find that there is almost not a single straight line in the entire structure. The floor bows upward, the columns lean inward, the corner pillars are thicker than the rest. The Greeks understood something we often forget. The human eye is flawed. A truly straight line to us looks weak and sagging. To create the illusion of absolute perfection, the master builders had to intentionally create imperfection. They crafted a lie in stone to tell a greater truth to the soul. The Parthenon is perfect precisely because it is imperfect. It is a living, breathing testament to the idea that harmony is not found in rigid rules, but in the delicate balance between the laws of the universe and the limits of human perception. The dust of millennia may have settled on these stones, and the gleam of the original gold may have faded, but the code remains. It is a silent reminder that while empires fall and wars rage, the truths of mathematics and the pursuit of beauty are eternal. If you have felt the pull of these ancient secrets and wish to walk further down the corridors of the past, then join us. Subscribe to Hidden Epoch Narratives as we continue to decode the mysteries left behind by the masters of the ancient world. The stone still has much to tell us. All we have to do is listen.